Never stop reading Bible. Welcome. Today, we're diving into a story about a massive shift. It's a moment when this huge, ambitious human project just falls apart. And right from the wreckage, something brand new and deeply personal starts to grow.
So I want you to imagine a world not long after the Great Flood where all of humanity is basically on the same page. I mean, everyone speaks the same language, shares the same culture, and maybe most importantly, they're all laser focused on one single powerful goal. And what was that goal? Well, they wanted to build a city with this gigantic tower, a ziggurat, that would literally reach the heavens. But this wasn't just some cool construction project, right? It was all about making a name for themselves, cementing their unity, and basically trying to protect themselves from God.
Yeah, but that kind of unity, the kind that's built on pride, it was never going to last. Their project gets shut down, their language gets confused, and the people are scattered all across the earth. And that scattered, divided world is the exact place where our story really kicks off. All right, so let's get into it. You see, the whole Tower of Babel story in Genesis 11 is really about pride and what comes from it: division. After the flood, you'd think humanity's response would be a little humility, right? Nope. Instead, they double down on trying to control their own destiny, and that defiance is exactly what leads to them being scattered all over the globe. So let's just break down what was going on here. You've got this unified pride, this goal to make a name for themselves so they won't be forgotten, and it's kind of ironic, isn't it? The one thing they were terrified of was being scattered, and the very thing they did to prevent it is what caused it to happen. It was a power grab, plain and simple, an attempt to cut God out of the equation. And right here, the story just takes this sharp turn. The camera, so to speak, zooms way in, from this epic story about all of humanity down to just one guy and his family. It's a total reset. So out of this big, scattered mess, we meet a man named Abram. And his story in Genesis 12 is the complete opposite of Babel. It's not about man trying to build his way up to God. It's about God reaching down to start a relationship with one person. And this is the call that changes absolutely everything. I mean, just think about what's being asked here. Abram is told to leave everything: his country, his people, his father's house, all his security, and to head off to a place he's never even heard of. It's a massive, radical leap of faith. And this whole call is built on a really important idea: a covenant. Now, this isn't just, a simple contract. It's a sacred, binding promise, an oath that has huge implications for everything that's about to happen. And here's what's so cool about this. Look at how these promises are a direct answer to the failure at Babel. Remember how the people at Babel tried to make a name for themselves and it all fell apart? Well, now God says, I will make your name great. They were afraid of being scattered, right? God promises Abram a land, a home. So these three things, descendants, land, and a legacy of blessing, they become the foundation for Abram's whole journey. Okay, so Abram does it. He packs up, he leaves. But this isn't going to be some walk in the park. Almost right away, his faith gets put to the test. And I mean really tested. So the first big test, a famine, right in the land he was just promised. It can't even support him, so he heads to Egypt. But he's scared. He cooks up this, let's call it a flawed plan, where he says his wife Sarai is actually his sister. And surprise, surprise, this plan goes south fast. Pharaoh takes Sarai into his house. It's a total mess, and it's only God stepping in that gets them out of it. It just shows you he's a real person, capable of fear and making bad calls. And that just makes you wonder, right? Why even put this in the story? Why show your hero messing up so badly so early on? Well, I think it shows you how honest this story is. The journey of faith isn't a straight line. It's full of stumbles and do-overs. And that leads us right into the next problem. But what's so interesting is that this conflict doesn't come from having too little, it comes from having too much. They leave Egypt loaded with wealth, and suddenly Abram and his nephew Lot are so successful that their crews are fighting over land and water. They've just got too much stuff to stay together. So this tension forces them to a major fork in the road. And this part of the story in Genesis 13, it's a choice that's going to show us exactly who these two men are and what they're really building their lives on. And just look at how Abram handles this. I mean, he's the elder, the leader. He's got every right to take the best spot for himself, but he doesn't. He steps up as a peacemaker and tells his nephew Lot, hey, you pick first, just so we can have peace. It's an incredible act of generosity. And this is where we see the huge difference between them. Lot looks around, and what does he see? This beautiful, green, well-watered valley. It looks perfect. So he chooses based on his eyes, on what looks like the best deal right now. Abram, on the other hand, is guided by faith. He's willing to take whatever's left over, because his trust isn't in the real estate he can see, it's in the promise he's heard. And then the story adds this ominous little detail. Lot's choice, based purely on what looked good, leads him right to the doorstep of Sodom. And we all know how that turns out. What looked like a great business move ends up being a spiritual disaster. But watch what happens next. The second Lot is gone. Right after Abram makes this generous, faithful choice, God shows up, and he doesn't just give him a pat on the back. He doubles down on the promise. He tells Abram, look around. All this land you see, in every direction, it's yours, and your family will be as countless as the dust on the ground. It's this incredible moment of reassurance. And really, that brings the whole thing home, leaving us with a question that's just as relevant today. When you and I are faced with a life-changing choice, what do we trust? Do we go with what we can see, the thing that looks like a sure bet right in front of us, or do we trust in something bigger, a promise that we might not be able to see just yet? Thanks for joining us for this explainer from the Center Studio.